All righty. Let's get going. I'm already running a few minutes late, so are we ready? No. How highly should we think about ourselves? And what does that have to do with being a Stephen minister? The short answers to these questions, as highly as God does, and it has everything to do with it. In the passage at the top of your outline, Paul counsels the church in Rome to think of themselves rationally according to the faith God has given them. The faith each of them have received was the same faith in the divine person Jesus Christ, who lived, died, and rose again. As Ephesians says, for it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. God has given us all the same gift of faith. Since we have faith, we should think about ourselves rightly, as people blessed by God, as Christ's beloved, as those filled with the grace of the Holy Spirit, given the enormity of God's sacrificial love. That's a humbling thought. But it's also the only sensible way to think about ourselves. But what does this have to do with being a Stephen's minister? Well, suppose that in the course of your caring relationship, you come to realize that your care receiver needs more care or a different kind of care than you can provide. It's easy to feel ashamed or frustrated in that situation, but there's no need to. Stephen ministers are equipped and trained to provide certain kinds of much needed care. They're not equipped to provide every kind of care a hurting person may need, especially when those of care require professional training. You shouldn't expect yourself to offer all that care by yourself. The good news is that you don't have to minister alone. In Romans 12, Paul tells us that God has arranged all of us into a body. Just as different parts of the body have different functions, so do we. None of us can do everything. We are all part of a bigger body, and God works his care and healing through many people, not just through one Stephen minister. God is the caregiver, not any of us on our own. So there's no need to be embarrassed or ashamed if your care receiver ends up needing a kind of care that only a professional caregiver can provide. It was never your job to cure the person to begin with. Only God can do that. Whether you're the sole caregiver for your care receiver, providing care alongside a mental health professional, or some other community resource, or even turning over the caregiving role completely to that other person for your care receiver's sake, you can do so confidently without guilt or shame. Whatever your role may be in the caring relationship, you remain God's beloved, and God remains in charge of bringing hope and healing to your care receiver and to you. Let's pray and entrust this time to our loving and mighty God. Gracious God, you have provided us gifts to use in serving you. You have given us faith we need to trust in you. Thank you for loving and caring for us generously. Strengthen our faith so that we continually look to you to provide everything our care receivers need. Show us when we need to involve other caregivers, or even step aside to ensure that people fully receive your healing care. Help us to think always of ourselves as you think of us, as beloved, redeemed, and infinitely valuable in your crucified and resurrected Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
In preparation for today's session, you read the book, When and How to Use Mental Health Resources, and your pre-class readings for this session in your manuals. These readings have given you a strong foundation for responding to situations where the necessary type or amount or level of care goes beyond the boundaries of Stephen ministry. We're going to take a closer look at this topic by watching a video entitled Navigating Mental Health Issues in Stephen Ministry. This video will build on what you've learned so far about handling situations involving mental health of care receivers. You can take notes on the specially provided pages, page 243, 44, 45, maybe 46. I forget if there's 3 or 4, but there's big places there as we go through the video. No, go the other way, Hazel. Go the other way. Next page.
There is 243.
Yeah, 243. Then see on those pages too, there's
What page am I supposed to be on?
well, just wherever you want to write. I mean, the next page has the introduction and the videos in sections, and it has a place to write in each of those sections on the subsequent page. All right, we're going to watch this video. It's about 35 minutes long, and it's really a review of what we've already done. I mean, we refer back to stuff that we learned in modules 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and it also looks ahead. We're pretty much done with basic training for Stephen Ministry. We're going to look at how to deal with people who have mental health. We're going to, in the next 3 weeks, we're going to do people who are suffering from grief, depression, suicide, and then we're going to be to a point that we're ready to look at how we're going to wrap this whole thing up with the last 4 sessions and try to do those in some kind of special event. So this is taking a look at all the stuff we've learned and how to apply that to what we're doing today and the next 2 or 3 weeks.
I know if it starts, because you got to be all the way over here to operate.
Okay, well, the screen's black. What do we do?
Is it on?
No.
You want me-
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, now we're on,
but
it's not moving
playing
yet. Oh, I said 35, I think 37. There you go.
Is that loud enough?
So it sounds like you feel things are getting harder each day, not easier like you'd hoped. Yeah. Yeah, some days, even just getting out of bed is the hardest thing. Not to mention going to work, taking care of stuff at the house. It's just like, I don't know. Being alive is tough right now. Yeah, I was thinking about this last week when we met. And with what we spoke about today, I really think it'd be good if you saw a counselor. A counselor? Yeah, you said you want to move on, but you keep feeling trapped by your own feelings. As your Stephen minister, I want to make sure you get the help you need. And I really think it would be good if you saw a professional. It'd benefit you a lot.
When we talk about mental health and Stephen Ministry, the first thing that comes to mind might be a care receiver who is severely depressed or maybe even suicidal. While situations like these are ones that Stephen Ministers are equipped to deal with, they really represent only a small portion of the mental health related issues that Stephen Ministers may encounter in their caring relationships. The vast majority of mental health issues that Stephen Ministers will face are far less extreme, and in fact, can even be appropriately addressed within the Stephen Minister's role as lay caregivers. Hello, my name is Henrietta Rivera. I'm a Stephen leader and a mental health professional, and I will be your guide as we talk about a number of important topics about navigating mental health in the context of Stephen Ministry. In this video, we'll cover 4 main topics: how Stephen Ministry principles and skills apply in the area of mental health, understanding the boundaries of Stephen Ministry in relation to mental health, the continuum of care, and dealing with the mental health stigma. You're going to hear from Stephen Ministers, care receivers, Stephen leaders, mental health professionals, and teaching faculty from the Stephen Ministry Center in St. Louis, Missouri, who will share practical information about caregiving situations involving mental health issues. But first, we should be clear about what we mean when we say mental health? It's a term that most of us are familiar with, but what does it actually mean? To put it simply, mental health refers to the overall state of a person's emotional and psychological well-being. And just as with physical health, a person's mental health can be good or bad. It can be affected by a variety of internal and external factors. So what does mental health have to do with Stephen Ministry? Well, in a sense, all Stephen Ministry caring relationships involve an element of mental health. Because the sorts of life difficulties that Stephen Ministry care receivers often go through will typically involve a person dealing with a stress, anxiety, difficult feelings, and other such mental and emotional challenges. Now, just because a person is experiencing mental or emotional struggles doesn't necessarily mean that he or she needs professional help. People react to life's changes in different ways, and the severity of the effect on their mental health can vary. It's when a person's mental and emotional struggles begin to have a significant negative impact on the person's life and become so overwhelming that the person can no longer cope with them alone, that the help of a professional is necessary. Sometimes this is called a mental health crisis. With all that in mind, what role do Stephen ministers have in the area of mental health? Well, even though they're not professionals, as trained lay caregivers, Stephen ministers provide care that can have a positive impact on the mental health of those they care for. Most of the time, Stephen ministers help their care receivers maintain their mental health by providing acceptance, care, and support. Doing that can even help prevent a more serious mental health issue from developing. In addition, when a mental health crisis occurs, Stephen ministers can serve as an invaluable link to professional care, helping a care receiver connect with a mental health professional. So those are the two roles that Stephen ministers have when it comes to mental health: supporting the maintenance of a care receiver's mental health through the typical care of a Stephen minister, and connecting care receivers with professional care when needed. Remember that the guiding principle for Stephen ministers is that we want care receivers to get the best care possible, the most appropriate type and level of care for their needs. No matter which of these two roles you are fulfilling, helping your care receiver get the best care possible will always be your goal. So if most Stephen ministry caring relationships involve a care receiver's mental health, how can you as Stephen ministers provide the best care? As it happens, much of what you'll learn in Stephen ministry training has a direct application. To tell you more about how these principles and skills apply in the area of mental health, we talked to Emily Hauk and Janine O'Shea, who are members of the teaching faculty of Stephen Ministries. I think you'll enjoy their conversation.
But that's an interesting question, isn't it? How does the training that Stephen ministers receive prepare them to have a positive impact on their receivers' mental health?
Yeah, it's also a really important question to consider because Stephen ministers can make a really big difference in this area.
Well, sure can.
You know, I would say that it starts with that second module on dealing with feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all familiar with the idea of venting, where you tell someone else about something that you're kind of annoyed or angry or frustrated about. That's not happy to do. So Stephen ministry is allowed it, I would say, but it's on a much deeper level.
For sure. And it is good to have someone to vent to.
Yeah.
But to have a Stephen minister, someone who can create that safe place to recognize and accept and express feelings, oh my gosh, that's so valuable. To express those feelings so they're not bottled up and potentially cause a serious health issue later on down the line.
Yeah. So you know what? You just said about a safe place, right? Another point from that module. The idea of the safe house.
Oh, right. The safe house.
Yeah. So the foundation of the safe house is grace-based acceptance. It is offering a care receiver God's unconditional love.
Yeah, absolutely. That unconditional love, and that module also uses the phrase unconditional positive regard, which is a term from the field of psychology, but it pretty much, covers the same concept. So, whether we're talking about unconditional positive regard or grace-based acceptance, what we're saying is that ability to deeply accept someone else, and that is so critical, such a foundational skill for Stephen ministers, especially when it comes to mental health, because there can be that stigma and that shame that surrounds mental health issues.
Yeah. I think that's also where listening comes in.
Yeah,
Makes sense. So Stephen ministers are using a lot of listening in that safe house that they built with their receivers. And the active listening skills that Stephen ministers use are very similar to the skills that mental health professionals use. So, of course, how those skills get used in Stephen ministry is a bit different. But I think the fact that they're also used by mental health professionals means these listening skills are highly effective.
Oh, they absolutely are. Obviously, the level of care that Stephen ministers offer is different from that to the mental health professional. But, the caring relationship is still intended to facilitate healing for that care receiver.
And I think that facilitation of healing then connects to the process approach that Stephen ministers take with their care receivers. So, of course, Stephen ministers do want results, but it's always the process approach that's going to get them there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And when you think about it, it's really not that much different than the approach that mental health professionals take in therapy. They may have a particular result that they're working toward with their client, but they'll still work a process. A mental health professional wouldn't say to a client, stop being traumatized. Of course not. No. Work step by step with that client to help move them forward.
Yeah, that concept of working a caring process is really big. Ultimately, that's how Stephen ministers will help their care receivers to maintain or improve their mental health. Stephen ministers are never forcing their care receivers to do anything. They are empowering them and supporting them so that care receivers can identify and work through whatever they might be facing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looks like we've covered modules 2 and 3, 5, and 4 as well, because it's got to work through the caring process to bring about the healing. What else is there?
Yeah, there's also the module on assertiveness.
Oh, of course, yeah.
That's probably the most relevant when a care receiver has mental health needs that are beyond what a Stephen minister can handle. Let's say the care receiver is severely depressed, and the Stephen minister needs to refer the care receiver to a mental health professional. Well, a Stephen minister is going to need to be assertive about that. Assertive with the Stephen leaders and saying, hey, I think my care receiver might need professional help. Assertive with the care receiver and saying, I think you should see a counselor. Maybe even assertive with themselves, taking the initiative and starting the process.
Yeah. And that's where setting boundaries comes in. Assertiveness is key when saying, this is where what I can do as a Stephen minister stops and where a professional needs to step in.
Yeah, and that fits in with the crisis theory module because when in a crisis, a person can move towards either the path to greater wholeness or the path to greater brokenness. Most of the time, having a Stephen minister can help the care receiver move toward the path to greater wholeness because the Stephen minister provides the support necessary to try new ways of adapting. But sometimes people just need more help.
Yeah, sometimes they do. Sometimes people get stuck in that stress or that anxiety. They start to move down that path toward greater brokenness. And that can be a sign for the Stephen ministers that it's time to refer to a mental health professional.
And helping a care receiver connect with a mental health professional is definitely helping them move toward that path to greater wholeness.
Yeah, it sure is. That also connects us to confidentiality because referring to a mental health professional is one of those situations where the circle of confidentiality widens a little bit so that the care receiver is safe.
And that's another area where there's a parallel between Stephen ministry and what mental health professionals do. When mental health professionals meet with people, of course, everything that they say is confidential. And the same way with Stephen ministry, confidentiality allows a care receiver to really feel safe and open up, share his or her thoughts and feelings. And we've already talked about how important that is to do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we've pretty much covered it all.
I think so. Do you realize that we just worked through all the modules in order up to this point?
Yeah, I think we did. Hopefully the trainees find that helpful.
Janine and Amity's conversation brings out an important point, that as Stephen ministers, you're going to be about as well trained in the area of mental health as lay people can be. In addition to the concepts and skills they mentioned, you also have the book, When and How to Use Mental Health Resources, this video, and upcoming modules on grief, depression, and suicide to equip you in this area. Whether you're caring for a care receiver's mental health by providing the usual care of a Stephen minister, or by working with your Stephen leaders to make a referral, you can have confidence in your ability to do either very well. Let's talk now about another concept from Stephen Ministry training that's especially relevant in the area of mental health: boundaries. For this important topic, you'll hear from Joel Brecher, who is the Program Director at Stephen Ministries St. Louis. The footage you'll see is a part of a presentation given to a number of Stephen leaders and Stephen ministers. Here he is.
Next, I want to talk to you about the topic of boundaries. A big part of successfully navigating mental health issues as a Stephen minister is understanding the boundaries involved. We often think of boundaries as defining what's outside of them, what is inappropriate for Stephen ministers. But it's just as vital to recognize that boundaries also define what's inside, those things that are appropriate for you as a Stephen minister to do. The reason for this is understanding boundaries as a lay Christian caregiver empowers you to be the best Stephen minister you can be. When you have a clear idea of what kinds of care are appropriate to provide as a Stephen minister, you can use your caring skills to the fullest extent. It helps you be more confident in what you are doing. It helps you leave the caregiving up to God, and ultimately results in the best care possible to your care receiver. And that's what we're all about. When it comes to navigating mental health issues in Stephen ministry, the most relevant boundary is that Stephen ministers are lay caregivers. They do not provide professional mental health care. So that defines what's outside the boundary, giving professional care, which means not trying to diagnose the care receiver or psychoanalyze them or offer treatment or anything like that. Inside the boundary, though, it's a whole different ballgame. What's inside the boundary is exactly what you have been trained to do, to provide emotional and spiritual support to your care receivers. That means listening to care receivers to help them work through difficult feelings, being a consistent, caring presence so they know they're not alone, and asking questions to help them explore the emotional and spiritual challenges that they may be facing. You can do all those things that you have been trained to do with confidence and passion. You can be the best caring presence you're able to be. You can actively listen with your entire self. You can be completely focused on the process and leave the results up to God and God alone. All of that you can do inside the boundaries of Stephen ministry, and it's all a way to be a positive influence on your care receiver's mental health. On top of that, you can also be attentive to the signs that a care receiver might need professional help. That's another part of what's inside the boundary of your role as a lay caregiver. Recognizing signs that your care receiver might need to see a mental health professional. And you know these signs from your training and from reading When and How to Use Mental Health Resources. Signs like a decreased ability to function in daily life, self-destructive behavior, and a distorted perception of reality, to name a few. You can think of those signs like warning signs on a fence or on a construction site. You can see those danger signs from a distance before you're actually standing right in front of the fence. If you ignore those signs and climb over the fence, who knows what might happen? The signs of the care receiver might need to be referred to a professional work the same way. They warn you that the caring relationship might be headed toward that boundary between what is and isn't appropriate for a Stephen minister to handle. And that lets you know that it's time to consult with your Stephen leaders about making a referral to a professional who can provide the needed care. Of course, from a distance, you might not be able to read if the words on the sign really say, warning, need for professional help ahead. And that's okay. You don't have to wait until you're right on the edge of the boundary before you do something. As soon as you see the signs on the horizon, you can go straight into that first step of making a referral, getting consultation from your Stephen leaders and your supervision group. And that's the most effective way to navigate these situations, asking for help. You don't have to worry about figuring everything out on your own. You always have others to help you.
I really like that image of the fence and the warning signs as an analogy for Stephen ministers keeping an eye out for signs that a care receiver might need to be referred to a mental health professional. The prospect of connecting a care receiver with a professional caregiver can sometimes be a bit anxiety-producing for Stephen ministers. But as Joel said, you are never going to be alone in navigating these issues. Another thing that can help you with feelings of anxiety or worry is to remember that connecting a care receiver to a mental health professional is not an ending to Stephen ministry, but an extension of it. You might remember the continuum of care from Chapter 2 of When and How to Use Mental Health Resources, which illustrates how Stephen ministry fits into a broader context of care and support. Next, let's take a look at this concept in a little more detail.
Stephen Ministry fulfills a unique place in the spectrum of mental health care. It's high quality care, but not at the level of professional care. It's lay care, but can go much deeper than the care provided by an untrained friend or family member. It offers more dedicated, focused time on a person's needs than a small group. And although it is distinctively Christian, it isn't the same as a pastor's care either. Of course, while Stephen Ministry fills an important role in addressing certain situations, it's not always the best fit for a person's needs. At times, for example, a person might have very serious mental health needs that require seeing a mental health professional. Or someone who is a Stephen Ministry care receiver might work through whatever crisis he or she is facing and no longer need the dedicated care of a Stephen minister. Instead, just relying on his or her normal level of daily support from friends and family. Wherever the care receiver's needs land on the continuum of care at a given time, one thing is constant: the goal of providing the best, most appropriate care to the care receiver. In other words, everyone is playing for the same team. Whether they're Stephen ministers or not, every caregiver has the same goal of helping the care receiver. What this means for Stephen ministers is that they don't have to be the be-all, end-all of care. They don't have to be a care receiver's best friend, their Stephen minister, and their counselor all at the same time. They're only responsible for the needs of the care receiver that fall within the scope of their role in the continuum. So, when a care receiver connects with other kinds of care, Stephen ministers can feel good about that. Here's what one Stephen minister shared.
Well, I talked to my Stephen leaders about my concerns about my care receiver, and together we decided that my care receiver was dealing with just too much for me. I definitely was a bit nervous talking to her about a referral to a mental health professional, but she actually was pretty open to it. I think she realized that it had just become too much for her. So she started seeing a counselor, and the counselor thought it would be better if we closed our Stephen ministry caring relationship, and so we did. Actually, that was a bit hard, but it was the right thing to do. And it did help her. Getting that professional help made a big difference for her. And I see it as God at work, using that counselor to help her heal.
There can sometimes be a temptation to make excuses for why a referral isn't necessary. And a lot of the time, they have the same faulty underlying thought. A Stephen minister is better than nothing. It would embarrass the care receiver to suggest they see a mental health professional, so a Stephen minister is better than nothing. It would be unchristian to refer somebody to a mental health professional when it could mean that the Stephen ministry caring relationship might need to close. And at least the Stephen minister is better than nothing. The care receiver doesn't want to or would never accept seeing a mental health professional. So them having a Stephen minister is better than nothing. But it's simply not true that a Stephen minister is better than nothing. The Stephen minister is trying to provide a professional level of care that's likely to cause problems for both the care receiver and the Stephen minister. The continuum of care ultimately shows that as a person's needs change, he or she can move back and forth along the continuum. Wherever a person ends up at any given time, it's one ongoing effort to care for that person, no matter who is involved in the caring. Because in the end, it's the person's needs that dictate what the appropriate type and level of care is, whether it's provided by a Stephen minister or another caregiver.
One factor that can make connecting a person with the right kind of care a bit more difficult is the existence of a stigma surrounding mental health issues and receiving treatment for them. To dig more deeply into what the mental health stigma is, how it can affect care receivers, and what Stephen ministers can do to combat the stigma, I am joined by Dr. Kenneth Hauk and Dr. Tanya Armstrong. Would you mind introducing yourselves to the Stephen ministers who are watching?
I'd be happy to. I'm Dr. Kenneth Hauk, and I'm the founder and executive director of Stephen Ministries. I'm a pastor and a clinical psychologist by profession. I work full-time for Stephen Ministries now, but I also had a private practice as a psychologist for a number of years.
And I'm Dr. Tanya Armstrong. I'm the owner and licensed psychologist with the Armstrong Center for Hope with Durham and Raleigh, North Carolina locations. I'm also the immediate past president of the North Carolina Psychological Association, and for the past 20 years, the minister of congregational care counseling at Union Baptist Church, also in Durham, North Carolina.
Well, thank you again for being here. As you both know, the mental health stigma is pretty widespread, even though people are now becoming a bit more aware of it. Because of that, helping Stephen ministers be more intentional about how they communicate about mental health issues is quite important. To get us started, we should make sure we're all on the same page. So what exactly is the mental health stigma?
Yes, that is indeed an important term for us to define. Mental health stigma is something I think all mental health professionals like myself are very passionate about overcoming. And it's important to be clear about what we're really talking about. Mental health stigma is a collection of negative beliefs about, attitudes toward, and perceptions of people with mental health issues. In other words, people who have mental health issues may be seen and talked about in a negative way, and mental health problems may be viewed as subjects that you just don't talk about. The result is that people may avoid others who are struggling with their mental health. They may talk negatively about them, or both.
I agree, and I'd add that stigma can take two forms. A specific form. The general attitudes and beliefs that are outside one get because they have a mental health issue.
So what sorts of harmful beliefs specifically come as a part of that? Just give us a few examples.
Anyone who has a mental health issue is violent, and that's just not true.
It's not. There's also the misconception that people who need to see a counselor or a therapist are weak, or that they've failed at dealing with life's problems on their own, and that going to counseling is a cop-out to avoid taking responsibility for their own lives. There can be a tendency mental health.
Perception that a mental health issue is evidence of some sort of spiritual failing on their part.
That's exactly right. And I guess we should also say that these are all misconceptions that other people might have about those with mental health issues, or they might be things that someone with a mental health disorder might think about themselves. So the stigma can come from the outside, or it can be generated internally from within that person.
Yeah. Also, I think one of the most hurtful labels is that someone who has a mental health issue is not normal. The judgment that comes from that label can result in a lot of fear and misunderstanding. And often people are not even aware that they have internalized these kinds of stigmatizing thoughts and attitudes.
Right. Misconceptions like these are just out there in society, so people can pick them up without even realizing it.
So to make this more specific, can a receiver be affected by the mental health stigma?
Well, obviously, how stigma affects someone depends on the person. But in general, all those stigmatizing attitudes and beliefs that we talked about can really generate a lot of fear and other such feelings in people. A care receiver might believe that needing to see a counselor is a sign of weakness. Or they might think that the Stephen minister suggesting the referral means that the Stephen minister thinks that the care receiver is weak.
I agree with that. I think the biggest effect of the stigma is that it makes people afraid, worried about being labeled, being
Like, if I have a mental health disorder, it means I'm crazy. The thought process can go something like that.
which really is why it's so important for Stephen ministers to be aware of the stigma so they can work to avoid saying or doing things that might be hurtful to a care receiver.
I do think Stephen Ministry does a great job of preparing Stephen ministers to communicate in ways that do not perpetuate the stigma.
Absolutely. Accepting care receivers and creating a safe place for them to share is so important. That acceptance of a person is like an anti-stigma. Stephen ministers demonstrating race-based acceptance can really help address feelings of isolation that can arise because of the stigma.
I think you've just touched on a very important question, and that is, how can Stephen ministers avoid perpetuating that stigma in all of their caring relationships, but perhaps more specifically when they have a care receiver they need to talk with about a mental health referral?
Well, I think there are 2 points that are especially important to remember. Number 1 is to understand your own feelings about mental health issues and have an awareness of how stigma about mental health might affect you. You have to recognize your own biases to be able to confront and overcome them. So it's good to say, for example, what preconceptions do I have about people with mental health issues? And are any of those beliefs ones that might be influenced by mental health stigma? And you have to be honest with yourself there. Number 2 is not to feel guilty about any current or past stigmatizing attitudes or beliefs you have or used to have. It's not helpful to beat yourself up. Instead, identify those attitudes and work to overcome them by empathizing with what people are going through.
I agree with all of that.
So what might be some specific strategies for how Stephen ministers can talk to their care receivers about mental health issues or a mental health referral?
I think there are 3, maybe 4 things I could say about that. 1 is to just be calm. Keep your own emotions under control, because when you're calm and not anxious, you're communicating that you aren't afraid of the care receiver. That can really put people at ease. A second thing is to be accepting, to have unconditional positive regard for the care receiver. Accept whatever thoughts or feelings the care receiver has. Be a consistent, caring presence, and don't react with shock or judgment. In other words, don't fall off your chair. Be an It's specific. I think thoughts. For example, you might say directly to a care receiver that a need for professional help doesn't mean that the person is unstable, needy.
Speaking of being unstable.
Have to be genuine.
Absolutely. The thought I had was to face things.
You want to do something that don't? Yeah.
Robert, try backing it up from right there, just a little bit, and that's it. Okay, I did something to hold, but then it cleared up.
One factor that can make connecting a person with the right kind of care a bit more difficult is the existence of a stigma surrounding mental health issues and receiving treatment for them. To dig more deeply into what the mental health stigma is, how it can affect care receivers, and what Stephen Minister, I am joined by Dr. Kenneth Houck and Dr. Tanya Armstrong. Would you mind introducing yourselves to the Stephen ministers who are watching?
I'd be happy to. I'm Dr. Kenneth Houck, and I'm the founder and executive director of Stephen Ministries. I'm a pastor and a clinical psychologist by profession. I work full-time for Stephen Ministries now, but I also had a private practice as a psychologist for a number of years.
And I'm Dr. Tanya Armstrong. I'm the owner and licensed psychologist with the Armstrong Center for Hope with Durham and Raleigh, North Carolina locations. I'm also the immediate past president of the North Carolina Psychological Association, and for the past 20 years, the minister of congregational care counseling at Union Baptist Church, also in Durham, North Carolina.
Well, thank you again for being here. As you both know, the mental health stigma is pretty widespread, even though people are now becoming a bit more aware of it. Because of that, helping Stephen ministers be more intentional about how they communicate about mental health issues is quite important. To get us all on the same page, so what exactly is the mental health stigma?
Yes, that is indeed an important term for us to define. Mental health stigma is something I think all mental health professionals like myself are very passionate about overcoming. And it's important to be clear about what we're really talking about. Mental health stigma is a collection of negative beliefs about, attitudes toward, and perceptions of people with mental health issues. In other words, people who have mental health issues may be seen and talked about in a negative way, and mental health problems may be viewed as subjects that you just don't talk about. The result is that people may avoid others who are struggling with their mental health. They may talk negatively about them, or both.
I agree, and I'd add that stigma could take two forms, a general form and a specific form. The general form consists of the negative attitudes and beliefs that are out there in society as a whole. The specific form is when those stray a particular person labeled or judged because they have a mental health issue.
So what sorts of harmful beliefs or attitudes specifically come as a part of that? Just give us a few examples.
Well, one thing that comes to mind is that people may think that anyone who has a mental health issue is violent. And that's just not true.
It's not. There's also the misconception that people who need to see a counselor or a therapist are weak, or that they failed at dealing with life's problems on their own, and that going to counseling is a cop-out to avoid taking responsibility for their own lives.
Don't think it's gonna work.
And sometimes there's also the misconception that a mental health issue is evidence of some sort of spiritual thing.
Okay, you got a few minutes to stretch your legs and everything, because I've got to get swapped over here.
Okay. while you're stretching, don't get up to do that. Just stretch your minds, man. Let's talk about that before we forget what we saw and didn't see. In your next page, is it? You got some questions? And a focus note? Focus note, no. Oh, no, it refers to a slide. All right, how would you describe the role of a Stephen minister in the area of mental health? We're just going to talk about that. How would you describe your role as a Stephen minister when it comes to mental health?
Allow that person to vent if they need to, and you don't judge what they do. I think it's necessary. I mean, try to recognize the signs at what point they might need a referral to a professional.
All right. And basically, we do what we always do until you see those signs around the construction site. And that's a good way to think about it. I mean, our whole process of caring is that we are the caregiver and God's the cure giver. Well, think about, in this case, the professional is that and not us. And so, but we, and I don't think we have ever had a case where we have made a referral.
Question, the lady, the Stephen minister that spoke about talking to her care receiver about a referral. Did I hear her say that their relationship ended?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. But the materials that we've read and will read and have had in the past that were different talk about when that happens. It is the professional's call.
That's what I thought.
And some of them, it depends on the case, depending on the professional will say, yeah, it's okay to continue that. Some don't want that
Relationship.
Yeah, that's supplemental care. They want to be it by themselves. Now, the next question that I always have, and there's nothing in the material that answers that, is when the caring relationship is done with the professional, then do we go back to the Stephen minister care, or are we done with that part? And nobody talks about that. So I don't.
It might depend on how well the person is doing
Right.
after the care. I mean, if they've already solved the issues and know that they're feeling like they're.
Yeah. But I would like for it to have said that the professional says, no, let me do this now. And at the point that I think I've done what I need to do, then I refer back to you. That's what I would like. But and nothing ever says that in the initial. Right. Okay. Second question. What are some reasons that maintaining boundaries is important for both the Stephen minister and the care receiver?
Well, I mean, we aren't professionals. I mean, we have been trained more than just the average folks out there in the world. And we have that training, but there may come a point that it's beyond what we've been trained to help with.
And that's what this training is for, is to help us recognize that point that suddenly, and not necessarily suddenly, depending on how far off you can see the sign, it becomes somebody they need to have more. The thing it said, but Stephen minister is better than nothing. That's not necessarily so. I mean, well, but I mean, in some cases, Stephen ministry is worse than nothing. If we try to be the professional and screw things up even more, make it worse. So we got to know when we get to that point and when we hand them off to someone else. We have simplified this process immensely in this group, and with Robert available, in that there are several steps. One, you talk to your Stephen leaders, you talk to your supervision group, all that. And then decide whether you need to make the referral. And then if you make the referral, who makes the referral? And there's a part in the book about that, whether it's the Stephen leader or the supervision group person or the pastor or you. In our case, the referral, when you think it's time, you talk to Robert, and then what is decided there is how we proceed. And it can come through the supervision group. It can come through Stephen leaders, which he is one. It doesn't even have to involve the rest of us. It can be just straight there and then make the decision. So a lot of what we're going to talk about the rest of today and next week and the week after are pretty much taken care of for your sake in that move that we just dumped the next 3 weeks worth of stuff on Robert. He don't have anything else to do anyhow. All right. The last question, what skills have you learned in your Stephen ministry training that will help you if you need to refer your care receiver to mental health professional?
I think one thing that has made me feel better is to know that it's not my fault.
Okay.
I have to refer her, that person, to somebody else. It's nothing I've done. It's to help her.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they went back through the first 7 classes that we had. What are some other things that are valuable in your training for this?
Learn how to listen.
Yep.
I mean, to really listen before you decide what you should do.
Right.
Yeah.
And then listen openly, grace-filled acceptance. I like that term. I mean, it's almost like, I don't know, totally non-judgmental, but just listening and being a vent possibility. We usually think of venting as somebody ranting and raving, but venting can be, I need to tell somebody about this, and it's calm and easy, and we listen. Assertiveness is important. I mean, you've got to be able to go to Robert and say, this is what I think, and this is why I think it. Not just, I've kind of wondering about Susie, if she's going off the deep end, that sort of thing. You need to be assertive. And another thing is we need to not have the stigma. And I tried to figure this out and I hadn't been able to yet. But one of the ways is to think of a professional as other medical professionals.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't all, well, nearly everybody that you know has a dentist, and they go to see the dentist and they don't like that. Well, I mean, relate it to something like that. That's not terribly negative. Or a chiropractor or whatever. And when we do that, it kind of takes that stigma away from, I mean, we wait till our back hurts so bad that we can barely move before we go see a chiropractor. That's kind of the way it is with mental health kind of issues too. But it's not all those things that he said. Doesn't mean the person's crazy, doesn't mean they're weak, doesn't mean they're violent, doesn't mean any of those things that we and public sometimes think. So, and we have to be able to clear that out of our thinking and be accepting of, here's the situation. And I mean, it made me feel so good when that girl was talking about making the referral. And she said, and her care receiver was accepting of it. Well, I think she did a really good job of listening. And so it's not always going to be a confrontational thing. You got to go see you may need the help of somebody bigger than me. I want to talk to Robert about blah, 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 or whatever, or talk to Robert first and then decide how to talk to him.
I feel like the well-being of your mental health is, I mean, it's kind of a whole circle. It's not just your physical health is here and your mental health is here, because so much of your mental health can affect your physical health. And I mean, if you won't.
And your physical health can help affect your mental health.
Exactly. It's just
personally
they're all
know that.
connected.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like they're separate.
Right. Right. And we wouldn't try to treat their,
Diabetes or something.
or stomach issues or migraine headaches or that kind of stuff. We say, you need to see a professional. Coleman Internal Medicine has some great guys, blah, 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 or whatever. Yeah. I didn't realize that. I wonder if Bill remembered. I'll have to check with him Friday. All right.
Done?
I'm done. Do we do another one before break?
Yeah, but we covered most of it. So.
Notes on the table.
I didn't change the slide.
Right in front of you,
On that table,
on this table.
I'm not tall enough to see over that. All right. Okay, I think that's where we are. All right, now let's spend some time renewing what to do if you need to make a referral to a mental health professional. You have spaces to take notes on this topic on page 245 and 246. One of the major points of the video is that you are not alone in a care receiver may need a higher level of care. If you notice your care receiver exhibiting any signs of that kind of need, the first step is always to get consultation so that you can get additional perspectives and guidance on what action to take. As you read in the book, there are 3 groups of people you can consult when in a mental health situation: our community resource contacts, your supervision group, and our crisis contacts. In the majority of those situations, your first choice should be to reach out to one of the community resource contacts, which we've already discussed is Robert. His name comes up a lot on all these in here. But Robert's the one that you need to talk to with anything that regarding any kind of professional care. He is also a good resource if it comes down to relating to they need other services that we don't always have at the top of our mind that we could help refer them to. But anyway, if the situation isn't urgent and you aren't sure whether your care receiver needs professional care, you can also consult with your supervision group. They will be able to provide support and guidance in how to best help your care receiver. Now, if it's an emergency situation, contact emergency services and get in touch with our Stephen Ministry crisis contacts. But Robert has already covered that before, that call him, talk to him. Don't immediately call a crisis center of some other source until we've talked to him and let him, unless it is a life or death situation. And sometimes I don't think any of us have ever been in that situation. Like Bob said, I don't think we've ever really had to do a referral. So we need the refresher course too.
We had a couple that needed a referral but wouldn't take it.
Oh yeah, I do remember that one.
Yeah, they needed one
badly, but
they
refused.
And that may very well happen. You may tell your care receiver that you really think that they need more help than you can provide, and mention they go to a counselor, and they may look at you and tell you, "I'm not doing that."
And a lot of that falls back on the mental health stigma they were talking about. People's image of mental health is a little skewed.
Even that's what? I'm sorry.
That's right. We would.
Well, actually, it was me that talked to the couple.
Yeah. So yeah.
When you talk to the care receiver and suggest what they might need, and they say no, what do you do? What do you say?
At that point, you tell them, "Well, I've done all I can do for you. It may be best that we end our relationship."
And then I can talk.
Yes, because what's going to happen there is if they told you no, they're going to expect you to be a professional counselor and counsel them not only on what the problems are, but want you to tell them what to do. And we don't. Stephen ministers never tell people what to do. But never tell them what to do. Never.
But really, should the Stephen minister not consult with you before they ever mention the need?
The Stephen minister came to me first.
Yeah.
And then I met with the people.
Yeah.
And
the first step is don't talk to him about it yourself. You talk to him about it first before you even bring up the subject.
If they say no, I don't want one, tell them, well, that's okay, I understand that. Have a prayer and politely excuse yourself out of the situation, then come see me and I'll handle it from that.
That kind of answer. If it's determined that your care receiver could benefit from a mental health professional, then you'll decide who will talk about that with your care receiver, and probably will go to Robert to talk to him. But sometimes the pastor or a Stephen leader may be the best person to do this, but often it may well be you, because as a Stephen minister, you have a trusting and safe relationship with the care receiver, and it might be determined that Robert says, yeah, but they obviously are close to you and they might be receptive listening to you, but talk to him first. Details on this conversation are in Chapter 7 and Appendix A of when and how to use mental health resources. So I encourage you to review that later. The main points to keep in mind are to express care and concern, share a few reasons professional care would be beneficial, and take time to listen, reflect, and answer questions, and remain assertive. Then share a list of professionals to potentially contact and let your care receiver know that you'll follow up about the contact later. I think this is a little, it kind of contradicts things, but let's just go on. Now we're going to spend a few minutes practicing what to say to a care receiver if you are making a mental health referral. First, quickly find a partner. Y'all want to just stay where you are. I think that'll work. We won't spend time moving around. Decide which of you will be the Stephen minister and which will be the care receiver for this first round. You can do that and that. Whichever one wants to be the care receiver and caregiver, just make that decision. As a back,
This is after we've talked.
you're gonna. Yeah. Well, see, I got this one is kind of contradictory in the process. It says to go to your Stephen leaders first, but then it has this exercise about what to do if you're talking to your care receiver about the referral.
I would say in our situation, we don't need to do this. That conversation with Robert and depending on that conversation is where this practice will take place. Robert will say, all right, you go to him and you say, so.
Right.
Or he'll say, let's both go talk to him.
Right.
Or he'll say, I got it from here, I'll take care of it. And so I don't think we need to practice having this conversation with the care receiver.
Since we're
If they're receptive and they're like, you're right, I do need a counselor, I do need a professional, then you simply say, well, let me talk to the pastor and get you the best resources we can. And it come see me. If they're amenable to it, if they're agreeing to it, then I'll find a resource, give it to you, and let you go meet with them because they're okay with it. But if they're like, well, I'm not sure, let me think about it, you come to me and then I call them and ask them to meet with me and I talk to them about what the best bet may be. I just had that phone call this week, not with someone who was in almost a Stevens ministry relation, ended up there without meaning to, and the person needs a lot more care than they can give. And I had to make a phone call this week.
So you're saying that they should broach the subject and see if they're receptive before they come and talk with you?
I think, yeah, we need to know whether they're receptive or not.
Okay.
If they say no, then just kind of close it with the prayer, come see me, they need more help. Okay. They said no, we'll go from there. But if they're agreeable to it and say, you're right, I really need more help, I really need professional help, well, let me go talk to the pastor and we'll get you some recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to know whether
so they should bring it up then.
Yeah. They should bring it up.
Yeah.
I can see in a caring relationship where the person is receptive, the care receiver may be the one who says, I might need to see a counselor. I mean, that it just kind of comes up in conversation. I think if you feel like you're forcing the issue to even bring it up, probably ought to talk to them ahead of time.
Assess the situation.
If it comes up in your normal care giving, Don't say, oh, wait a minute, don't talk about that. I gotta go talk to Robert first.
Yeah,
Just do it. And
Just do it.
That's part of it.
Conversation goes the way it goes, and then come see me.
But if you're having a hard time making out the warning sign from a distance, and then all of a sudden, by the time you can read the sign, you're too close, and nothing has been said.
and you don't know how
they
they,
talk to Robert.
Yeah.
Before.
so I guess you just have to take each situation as depending on what's
You
going
really
on
do.
and make your own judgment, whether you can just talk to them in the normal conversation with your normal care visit, or if it's something that may bring about negative feelings that you need to talk to him first. Just kind of assess which seems appropriate for that situation. So just skip over these 3 exercises that it's doing where you're discussing this stuff, since we're a little short of time anyway, and if that, we're not going to be, there's not much need going through this at this point. I think it would be just a normal conversation with them if it came up in a session and it came up in the conversation that you could discuss it, then these wouldn't apply. This is more if you just are bringing it up to them. If it's been decided that you need to be the one that goes and talks to them. These are what these exercises would be for. So, and we're not likely going to get into that situation real often. So I think it'd be a good one just to kind of skip those couple of exercises that we have in here to do that. And so let's just do briefly this last one that is the whole class discussion, and we'll only use a moment or two to do that. Discuss it instead of discussing what went well and what could have gone better. What do you take away from this whole conversation about if you're feeling the need that they may need more help than you're able to give? What do you take away from that is what you need to do in that situation? Have we made it clear, or are we still?
That's what I'm sitting here thinking.
Okay.
If I have a care receiver and I feel like they might need a professional,
Mm-hmm.
I come talk to you first. Is that correct?
If it's not just come up in that they've indicated they may think they need help, or if it's come up in a conversation that they might need help, yes, go talk to him first.
Talk to him. Are y'all getting involved at this point? The leader? No, just go talk to him.
No, well, he isn't one of our leaders. He is one of the student leaders,
One of the leaders.
and he's the one most
Come talk to
qualified.
me.
And if you tell me what to do.
Yes, ma'am. I will tell you what to do. If I ask you, did the person agree that they need professional help, and you say yes, then I'm going to find you the resources, give you a list, you take it back at your next meeting.
Okay.
If they're not receptive, they don't think they need professional help, then you let me call them and have a conversation with them.
So I call you first, and I go back and suggest it to them.
Right.
And if they don't want it, then I come back.
Then you come back to me.
Or if they do want it, I come to
You come back to me. Those twice you'll come see me to let me know that you think a referral is needed, and then whether they do or don't want the referral.
So basically what you're saying is if the care receiver has brought that up and said, I feel like I need to see a counselor.
Yeah, then you come see me.
So they need to be the one to bring the conversation up. But then if you have seen signs and you feel like they need help and it hasn't been brought up by the care receiver, we come to you.
Yes, come to me. If the care receiver hasn't brought it up and you feel like they need it, come see me. Because that's a difficult conversation to have.
He just wants to see us all.
You don't get to hear one of the other speaking negatives instead of brother. That's exactly what we're going to tell you.
You'll see, Robert.
So
Well,
you can't make a mistake.
and
I want to make sure I had it all.
well, that's why I said let's discuss this for a minute. This is the ending of this little session here, and we skipped over some of the other exercises. But I thought we did need to clarify that we haven't totally confused the whole issue, and that you do know how to handle it if you feel like there is a need for professional help, and if you've seen those signs and it's obvious, and they haven't indicated a reception to do that. I mean, then yeah, if they haven't brought it up and indicated they feel like they need some help.
And if I could, I want to reiterate what they said and what was in the reading. what was in the devotion as well. We do not give cures.
No.
We don't cure people. That when somebody says, well, what should I do? You don't, that's not what you do. You don't tell people what to do because it may be the wrong suggestion. You may not know all of the story. When they ask what you should, well, Francis, what should I do? Then your conversation is, well, let's discuss what you think would work and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
And let them bring up suggestions of what to do. If they then come back and say, well, no, I want you to tell me, then you just have to be honest and say, as your Stephen minister, I'm not here to give you answers. I'm here to help you find your own answers.
I don't have the answer.
Exactly. You don't have the
You will
answer.
have to find her.
Right. So you can sit there and have that conversation. Get them thinking about how they would answer.
Like I hope would feel like I really care about.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
I don't have your answer.
Exactly. And then, what do you think the answer is? And let them start working it out in their own head, in their own mind. Well, sometimes people are quick to try and find an answer from someone else when they've got the answer themselves. They just haven't thought about it.
Oh, they hope somebody's got a better answer.
I hope they got better answers than I have sometimes.
And I think part of all of this is letting God help you discern.
Absolutely.
Having him, help give me discernment about what I need to do.
Absolutely.
How I need to respond. That sort of
I
thing.
just read an article on 5 things pastors should do before they step in the pulpit. And the second one applies so much to Stephen ministers. And that is, you never walk into a situation that you're not prayed up. That you haven't prayed over and prayed over and prayed over before you ever walk into that situation. Make sure you are prayed up.
Well, and then listen. Listen for the answers. Even during the discussion time, you can pause and think, well, before you, silence is not a bad thing sometimes. Right. Sometimes it gives them time to think about what they just asked and think it over for themselves. So don't ever feel awkward with having a silence in the conversation, like you got to be talking every minute.
There was I don't know if y'all read the devotion, Upper Room devotion today.
I did. And I thought, this is Stephen ministry.
I thought, that's exactly. The lady didn't go to give her advice she just
sat with her.
She was just present.
Just sat with her.
Mm-hmm.
When I read that, I thought, this is Stephen Ministry 101. It's so appropriate. There's some little clip that you used to see the little cartoons about where the little boy is sitting right beside an older guy just sitting there, and his mom asking what he was doing. He said, I was just crying with him. And that's a good thing. Just to be there, just to feel the presence, even because sometimes there is no words to say. There's just not. Anyway, okay. We've already talked about this, so I think it's time to just go to break for a few minutes. Since we're probably a little behind schedule as it is. But that's always easy. It's built into the schedule sometimes that we're going to get behind.
That surprised me about that. Maybe just wanted to sit in.
It was, and I was surprised that they went from another country. And a lot of times you can tell without even looking where they're from. It's not from here. Yeah, we do too. We do too. Oh, shit. Yeah, we do. We got, well, we read the best devotion. Yeah. Reads that a lot. But we read that one and we do the Upper Room, and then I have a devotional book that I pulled back out that we used several years ago that I thought was really good, and I want to go back and do it again because I hadn't had time to go look for anything for this year. And I thought, well, this will work because it's all new because it's like 3 years old.
things on wheels. She used that 3 other times a day, she does it.
Yeah.
Like,
Since that, she'll end at 74 minutes. Started at 73 minutes, so. Maybe 5 minutes.
If I was supposed to tell, see, I could take Peggy to the thing, and then I go to the parking lot, and I got to rush across it. I just thought, I watched first service on video. We could just kind of run. And come back to 20th, I think, or 21st, something great. I'll miss.
Yep.
We went through that several times, I just never realized that we get done with everything with confidentiality, and then it's mental health, depression, suicide. I mean, we're dealing with really specific kinds of things that have hardly ever come up, so. And if we do the reading, the 3 classes, the reading in this book right here is super. Basically just read all that, so that's. We did it like a textbook, we can just do that reading, just be training itself. Right. Somebody out there who's waiting for you to finish the training. I say, man, once you get to that point, then schedules. Flat, you can make that work for both of you. That's gonna be 5 days a week, like Carol, and Huntsville. On that Huntsville.
Well, that's who, and that's who I ended up with. She's,
Right.
yeah, she's been unschooled. Anybody. Or something that's scripture.
Well, I mean, when I had next door neighbor, had to have, I guess, 30 or whatever, he had prostate cancer, radiation treatments every day for 6 or 7 weeks. But he drove to Birmingham to do it.
And we just, we didn't know what that on it. Feelings of it. That's our doctor.
Right.
So. And then all.
Yeah.
Not saying that doctors here, but. This is what they said.
Right. Yeah, it's just, cross the lake, you don't want to be there, drive back home.
Yeah. So she did. True. It's the guy. He didn't. Yeah. Super.
Yeah. When I met with him about the church, he told me, he said, so it was a big statement. And it's churches. That's what statements was. And he kind of got
Well, I know she will, but that's still.
Yeah.
Smoke the rest.
And yeah.
Tough decision. No matter how bad.
Years ago. 12, 15 years ago. I said, no, she has been years ago, so that lady was to the church that came out of our house was not the church. That's the first place. I mean, I thought it was a church, and I went in the 50s. We attended seminars together. I spent 5 days out of my new diseases. And I don't really have friends. Oh, yes, we will extreme opposites. So when I met him, that's what was crazy.
But in the winter time, can't go outside. Not big enough. He told me not to.
I could run all the stuff I had to.
Stay off as much as possible.
That was, yeah, he said, actually, I said, I had stuff I didn't put in my next 2 weeks. He said, we'll just run anything.
So yesterday I decided to do something. And have lawnmowers in the garage, so I didn't have to go outside all the way to city blocks. I said I was going to do belt, drive belts, not the lady, just. I can change that. Never done it before, don't know how, don't know where it is, don't know how it works. But I had to get the lawnmower the last year, and like if I had 2 cinder blocks, so I had to walk down below the dam to get one against the building. He didn't put 2 cinder blocks down. We're putting up 60. If I could pick up the lawnmower, and I could, but I said maybe I only got the block, pushed it up, set it there, and then got down to the floor and worked on taking stuff off and taking it apart. You know, they're not, it's like I said, well, that's around shop. It's just a little sunshine, no wind, it's not all that cold. I said, but it was Cooper was the one, plus in the garage, nobody could see how hard it was for me to get up, get back up. But then last night, she's just kind of. My leg was hurting, my shoulder hurts.
Somebody, somebody he thinks. That's the way you should
So was it strength or was it weight? No, no. So she was, I see, I gained so much weight.
She is supposed to be.
It's hot for chairs, yoga stuff, because it comes from, playing solitaire on the phone, it comes up all the time.
Oh, dang, he doesn't know now. He's a good man. He's strong.
Well, I think Jerry, who else is or something. And I asked my sister, Judy, about that when we were down there, because she's a big fat, she likes to, she said, oh, wait, gather your. Well, then, I don't know, that's what the physical movement gets go through, and they put it together, it looks like it's from.
had one, we had to go on the jail. We deleted the comments and blocked. Well, she was upset because we didn't take better care of the small one. Take care of it. The old time, so that somebody brought them the old bed. And he's like, yeah, why did you do that? Yeah, she said she did. If he had and done the wrong thing, and those people don't, the last time, before she left you, she was on the sixth of, she told me that. Oh, she wanted everybody, she talked about it. She got. She don't say it all. She's a walking contradiction. Yeah. She's a walking contradiction. I take her when I said several people talked about telling everybody what good friends he had. I know he was. But he was in charge of the study. And I was the pastor of the registration. We emailed it all the phone. I like that. Oh, yeah, Brenda. I didn't know Brenda that way.
Making referrals to other community resources, other being other than mental. We'll, wait until the other ladies get set down. Now, we said in mental health that Robert was the go-to person no matter what, contrary to what the Stephen Ministry says, that we go to Robert first. That is the same thing for every other kind of referral. Robert is engaged with the congregation enough that he wants to be the person, and he is the person to talk to. We're on page 247.
What?
247. You're going to be really lost, Hazel.
I already turned over.
But really, there's not any difference in the procedures, the Stephen Ministry procedures for non-mental health things than there are for mental health things. But I'll just talk about some of them. I had an issue. I didn't even know about Stephen Ministry at this time, but I got a divorce back in 2000 and what I started in 2011 in Tennessee. They have no fault divorce. If one of the couple wants to get a divorce, they get a divorce, no matter what. You can't fight it. My wife came to me and she didn't say I want a divorce. She said I have filed for a divorce, and
It's a done deal.
it's a done deal. It gets made official. We have to do a property settlement thing.
No, I was just asking, and that's just kind of strange that one person can decide.
It's the same way, Bob.
No.
No, mine was not the same way.
There was nothing I could do about it. I mean, it was going to happen. That we had to do property settlement. But in fact, that's a different story. Our lawyers kept arguing about the property settlement. Finally, just one Sunday afternoon, she and I sat down, and about 3 months, their lawyers argued about it. But she and I sat down and figured it out in about 30 minutes. But anyway, I went myself. I decided I need help. I didn't have a Stephen Ministry. I'd never heard of Stephen Ministry at that time. I went to my pastor for counseling, and it worked very well for me. My pastor was great. I tried to get her to go too, but she wouldn't. So anyway, I needed help, and fortunately, God directed me to the way I could get the help I needed. And it turned out pretty well because I got Carolyn out of the deal. Yeah, you can't have a better wife than Carolyn. And of course, y'all know that Kelly and I had always known each other since we were 1 year old. On page 247, before the break, we talked about making referrals to mental health professionals. Now we're going to look at making referrals to other types of community resources. The individuals, organizations, and agencies in our area that help people with the needs they aren't concerned with, the mental health, but fall outside that. I'm going to back up for a little bit of lost time here and just tell you the way it is. We have a list. Lori keeps a list that Stephen Minister initially developed back in days of yore of the community organizations here in town. And I believe you were given an assignment of those. Lori has such a list, so you can go to her and get it. We ask you to, in the assignment, to do that for anything except the link and CCC, because we think you probably all know about. I'm the chairman of CCC. Carolyn's a volunteer worker. Joel knows all about it. He was a volunteer worker until he decided that he needed to retire. Carolyn and Joel, as volunteers, they know the organizations here in town. The CCC has files on for different purposes who to go to. St. Vincent's de Paul, other churches, and the link is very good too. CCC is actually at the link. So if you need to know, and we don't have it in the list that Lori has, ask Carolyn. She probably will know the different organizations in town that can help you. There's several steps I want you to take. Look at focus note 1. Look at those. You see, identify a possible need with your care receiver.
that mean physical needs?
Yeah, that means
Physical needs within the home?
not necessarily physical.
Yeah, this is about physical.
Not divorce.
Okay.
It is one such need. It wasn't physical, but non-mental.
Okay, but I mean, sometimes I could see maybe being in a home that needed something. That's
Well,
fine.
a lot of times, it's money.
Well,
They're hurt.
what about,
They don't have enough to eat.
well, I guess that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. We have people come to CCC that, can't come to CCC because they don't have gasoline and don't have transportation. And we give them gas cards. So the only thing we give other than paying their power bills is, we do give gas cards so that they can go to their various places they need to go.
So we do Meals on Wheels?
We do not. That's an organization.
That, hey, that was one of the things I looked at Commission on Aging. Meals on Wheels. They do things like that, and they do, like, they have the ones that are full-time centers. They have meals that you can go to Monday through Friday, or you can get meals delivered at your home. I mean, they just have a lot of.
Meals on Wheels is a great organization. Links.
Different things that, well, you have to be 6-year-old or so. Yeah. Age.
For,
But a lot of things.
for people who don't have anything, Meals on Wheels, Link, Coleman Church of Christ.
10 times a week, people from, Smart King Johnson deliver. In the van, deliver there. They fight over, literally, sometimes, that's literal. They get fight over who's getting to go and deliver. It's Margaret King.
Margaret King Jones takes a van and
Yeah,
delivers
yeah.
to other people.
Okay. Every house has their own van, but anyway, and sometimes, I mean, this is just an aside, but one time I had, it's been about 6 months ago, that one of the little ladies that was very agile was hiding in the back seat, hiding behind the back seat, she wasn't supposed to be gone. And they're down there looking for her. I'm sorry, it was just, they just love doing it. They just love it.
So while we're stopped there for a second, did others of you research somebody like Connie did?
I can't hear you.
Did you research somebody?
I did.
Who did you?
What did you find out?
First choice. First choice.
I did that one,
I thought about that one.
What is,
I did it.
okay, so what is First Story?
What about it?
What is it?
What is it?
Yeah.
It's a pregnancy center for women with unplanned births. What they do, they encourage, especially young people, they encourage people to keep their children or give it away for adoption. It's totally against abortion. Okay? You want me to tell you about it? Okay. Why didn't you say so?
I did.
No, you didn't. All right. It's First Source for Women.
Yeah.
I got their website. They have 2 locations now. They have one in Hansville where it started, and they also have one in Coleman now on 2nd Avenue. The person to contact down there is Janet Davis. I've got her email. And it says, what services does this resource provide? It provides free pregnancy testing, ultrasounds, referrals, clothing, prenatal and parental support, and all is free. No charge for nothing. Their hours are 9 to 4, and like I said, no charge. I got their addresses, who's available for this service, any female. How does one access these services? They go in or call. And the last 2 questions couldn't. The 7 and 8, I did not get that information because I called down there 2 or 3 times this week and couldn't get nothing, so I didn't get those last 2. So that's what I did.
What was the woman that started last name? Very well, her name is.
I know Janet Davis, so her kids were in school.
Do what?
I know that Janet Davis, her kids were in school when I was principal, and she was a big band booster person. I'm not surprised that she's doing something else now that they're graduating.
The woman that started it, actually spoke to our men's group, and we did some work for her, gutted out a building.
Your church, we have collected money, baby things. Our quilt guild, we support them too, because we have a charity every year that we do, and we choose different ones, and we've done that one several times. The first year we did it, we made them 52 handmade baby quilts.
Wow.
Wow.
Anybody else have one you research you would talk about?
I want to hear about Connie's. I want to hear about the missionary.
Tell her about it.
Well, they're located on Sportsman's Lake, and they have a phone number. They have 6 full-time other centers other than the one on Sportsman's Lake. They do lunch, the full-time centers do lunch Monday through Friday. They host event activities like arts and crafts and music. They do a homebound meal delivery. They have free legal services for people 60 and older. They can connect you to other, connect seniors to other community resources like, well, shoot, it just left me. United Way.
Yeah.
Carts, that sort of thing. They do open enrollment help with Medicare when that time comes. You do have to have an appointment to have that done. You can bring all your medicine in. They will look through the different drug plans, Medicare drug plans, and try to help you come up with the best drug plan for the medications that you take. They will assist you with application to try and help you get free medicines if you qualify. They work with partners like the United Way to provide a wide range of support, including caregiver assistance and fraud prevention. They also do trips, like to, different cities and stuff, kind of like dog racing or that sort of thing. They're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. What else? The other full-time centers are in Colony, Crane Hill, Fairview, Hanceville, Holly Pond, and West Point. And I think you would just have to call and ask to know whether or not you might need to make an appointment to come in. Or you could probably just go in and they would,
So do you have to be a member? Or
There's no
can you just
membership.
show up on,
you have to be 60 or
if
older.
we left here now and went to eat lunch, and one of them, we just walk in and eat?
It didn't say on the website. You could call and find out.
Or if I needed legal help, I just,
You would call and they might say, make an appointment. I don't know about appointment wise, whether they're just able to take you in if you just walk in without, calling ahead of time.
I thought all they did was play bingo.
Yes.
Home and Church of Christ, you can just show up.
And I took Lionel's mom there a couple of years in a row, trying to find out about the best drug. That was when it came to the point that you had to choose a drug plan if you were on Medicare, and they were very helpful. It's really nice. So.
Did anybody study Samaritan's Purse?
Who? Samaritan's Clinic.
Yeah, Samaritan. What is the name of it? The one that Kay Phillips. Good Samaritan Clinic, yeah. Kay Phillips, nurse there. And
what does the Church of Christ do? You said
they feed people. They do just about everything for people. They're very, very good.
Which one?
The one out by 157 that used to be in the building the Link's in now. Yeah.
Yes.
They're very, very, very good. No, it's down out on 157, right on Child Haven Road. When I worked at Grace Place at the Grace Episcopal and the daycare center for Alzheimer's patients, we had several volunteers from Coleman Church of Christ, and I got familiar with them at that time. Good people. I mean, they're a bunch of working people. Of course, Link serves food to people too every day.
Sound good?
Sherry, do you want to tell us about,
Mine, mine is the United Way. So she told a lot about mine. It's on 104 Austin Avenue Southeast. The phone number is 256-739-2948. They help with health, education, and financial stuff too. And they're open Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 4:30. And you can contact Stephanie Childers and her. It gives her email address, which is schilders@United Way CC organization. That's what they met with.
You can contact Wade Harbison too. Wade works mostly with the gas. They have gasoline cards too that they give away.
I forgot to say, they have an application that you can pull up and print off, and it lists the different things that you might need assistance for. And it said you could either mail that back in to them, or there was an email that you could send it to a person.
there's a registration kind of thing.
The Samaritans, whatever the Samaritan thing is called, I'll keep
Good Samaritan.
Good Samaritan. Susan Coleman is very involved at the top end of that. She's the head fundraiser.
Yeah.
You got one?
She left before we gave.
Oh, you left before this.
Yeah.
You got one. Yeah, she is one. That's right.
You could probably give about somebody in your win.
Those. The Margaret Jean Jones is a very, very good organization too.
I left here to go to a recent work committee and they have 2 months for the hospice of Coleman County.
Ah, yes, that's another one.
When we first started, I was on a hospice for like 35 years ago. When it first started, well, about 6 months after it first started. And that was Dr. Pinehart was one of them, Tommy Gunner was one of them, Mr. Dunlap was one of them. But anyway, and then that was 2 months. I mean, I was really working as a sharpest guy then, so I was only on that committee about a year and a half. And then your brother was on that committee for how many years?
He's known it forever.
And then when he passed away.
He was chairman of hospice and hospice of Coleman County. And then when he had to start receiving care from them, I think it was required that he resign as chairman. But he asked me who I would recommend to fill his slot. And I told Francis' name, then I found out that she'd been one of the original members.
Who was your brother?
Donald Jones.
Oh. And
You ever hear of him? I thought everybody had heard about Donald, didn't you, Bob?
But at that time, well, when it was started, it was in a little house about a block north of the hospital. I mean, and when I say little house, I'm talking about 2 bedrooms. Yeah. I mean, but that was the office and all. But then it grew. Then it came across the old that building across that used to be the nurses' building 150 years ago. But anyway, through the years, since I was on the board, and not because I've been on the board forever now, but, and I don't know if y'all know this, but a year ago, we were able to fund and complete 2 rooms at Coleman Hospital. Did you know that? Coleman Medical Center?
I did.
They are actually 4, it would have been 4 rooms, but they're put together as 2 rooms that are hospice. The hospice of Coleman County is for people
who don't have money. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
they're
like
like
a, yeah, like a
urgent,
check,
yeah, yeah. But, so it's been there about a year and a half. But in the hospital, if they have some big thing and need the rooms, they can use the rooms. But like the 2 rooms are combined. If you have a person who is sick, can't stay home anymore, they have their beds, they have a separate part, you can pull a curtain, they have sofas, they have 2 televisions, they have a refrigerator, so their family can stay with them for the last few years.
When
When
they did
It's
that,
been an amazing thing.
Donald hit me up for a contribution for our family because hospice company kind of was so good to our mother. And then we gave some funds to those 2 beds. It's really good.
We have a patient now that we talked about last week. There is, I don't know where, west, in the house that, needs a lot of help. It doesn't have anybody, any family, somewhere or anything, the nurses. So, you know, I'm making up for not filling out.
Yeah, you did good. Well,
Great organization.
back to Sherry's, United Way is a wonderful organization. I was chairman.
Great organization.
I was chairman of United Way for Belgium when I was there as a volunteer. Most of the big companies headquartered in Belgium because of tax reasons. And what we did is we raised the money from payroll reductions, payroll contributions, but we didn't have the committee that dispersed the money. We asked the bunch of Belgian people to form a committee to disperse the money. So we raised the money and they dispersed it. It really worked out well. It really helped our relationship with the Belgian community.
In Tallapoosa County, Alex City, I was on the disbursement committee.
That's it.
I was
Very
the committee
important.
that put together who got what, who got how much, and
Listen, these disbursement committees do a wonderful job in this way.
you'll go home crying because you don't have enough money to give everybody what they need.
Yeah, that's what we do at CCC. We have the meetings Thursday right after 1 o'clock Thursday afternoon of the people that have worked that week, giving out money. And we almost ends up crying because there's so much needs beyond beyond our limit, our upper limit. Sometimes we go a little over that upper limit. And sometimes I want to tell you about these wonderful volunteers, including my wife, including Gerald, and including a bunch of other people under Miss Hazel Heinze. Some of them, pretty much all of them, take money out of their pocket and give to them. So it's just a great organization.
Let me add something to my hospital rooms that I may not have made clear. But if you go in the door, you're looking at a living room. There's a couch, there's televisions, there's a little access and where the patient is next is like a home bedroom. I mean, you know, it's just all there. And you can't, and it is there for any, you know, the people who can't afford whatever. But also, if you are having cancer and you need to go and you can go there. I mean, you know, people can come. It doesn't have to be an indigent patient. If you have insurance, you can go ahead and come. It's not, because we want it there for anybody that needs it. You know?
Donald was in one of those rooms right before he died. He did request not to that he go home before he died, but he was in.
These rooms were not, they just were last year. He was not. These are like you walk into a house at home. Yeah. I mean, I know the kind he was in and it was a good room.
Yeah.
But this is just like walking into you're going into your house.
Yeah. Okay.
And the families can come, the kids can come, the grandkids can come. They can all stay there. I mean, it's not they are. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
We're gonna go on to, number 4. Bob, is that you?
We're doing 249.
Oh, is me.
Oh, is me. We made up something.
Page number 253 on your book, page 253 on your book. As we've done each week, let's use the caregiver's compass to think about the teachings for today on making referrals. You have a copy of the compass on page 253 in your outline. As we discuss the 4 points in the center of the caregiver's compass, write words or sentences that summarize what you learned about each point. Let's begin with the point on top, compassion. How does what you have learned today, this module today of making referrals, how does that lean itself into compassion?
Stay calm.
Ma'am?
Stay calm.
Stay calm. Someone else? Gee, don't everybody answer at once. Wow.
I just used everything I knew, sorry.
Oh, you've already used what you knew, huh?
I like that. Reference to grace-filled acceptance.
Yeah.
You accept without any regulations or any qualifications.
Amen. Grace-filled acceptance. Folks, it can be compassionate to do a referral for someone. Doing the referral can be one of the most compassionate things you do.
I think when you see that it's beyond what you're capable of, the care that you're capable of giving, that's compassionate.
I think listening can be compassionate.
Listening is a very compassionate thing to do.
Sometimes we don't tend to do that.
Well, God gave us 2 ears.
Here, but I'm
Yep.
just saying.
God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. That should tell us something. That should tell us something. Full of faith. How does referrals apply to full of faith?
It drives you.
It drives. Somebody? Anybody?
I think that trusting God is giving us the strength and the knowledge to refer somebody.
Trusting in God to give you the strength and knowledge? Yes. Not only is it a compassionate thing to refer someone to somebody that can help them more, but you're putting faith in God that God will use someone else other than you to help this person work through whatever may be the issue. In the ministry, I see people quite often that get stuck on a date. You know what I mean by that? That they get stuck. They can't move past it. I had a church member that lost their daughter at the age of 16. Every year they had a birthday party for her in the cemetery. Everything they did was related to that daughter. Even though when I met them, she had been gone for 10 years. They still were holding birthday parties every year in the cemetery. They took a vacation the week of Thanksgiving. They went on vacation because she died the day before Thanksgiving, and they didn't want to be in the house where she died. 10 years later, they could not walk into the room that she lived in. We can get stuck on dates. And trust me, it's compassionate and faithful when that happens to help someone get beyond that date.
And they're still doing that.
Yeah, they're still doing that. Sometimes all they need to do is talk about it with someone. Sometimes you need to realize, as I realized, they were beyond my care. They were beyond what I have been trained to do. They needed much more counseling than I could do, much deeper counseling than I could do. And I trusted in God and had faith in God that when I recommended a counselor to them, that they would listen and accept it, and they didn't. They didn't want to. They said there was nothing wrong, that everybody did this. This is how everybody handles death. And I didn't even bother to disagree. skilled. You better be skilled at how to do referrals. That's what today was about, was helping you to have the skill to do referrals.
We're skilled about coming back and talking to you about it.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, that is, you need to have that skill. You need to know when you're about to get in over your head. That's a skill, folks, because some people will never admit that they are in over their head. I can do anything. Well, no, we can't. I can't do anything. If I speak to the person and they tell me that I'm crazy, they don't need a counselor, then folks, that's as far as I can go. If they won't take it, then there's a wonderful book when y'all finish this series. There's a wonderful book called Difficult Conversations, and I forget now who wrote the book, but it's called Difficult Conversations, and it's about how you have difficult conversations with people. The skill and the ability you need to be able to have a difficult conversation. It's a wonderful book. I use it quite often. When I'm in a situation that I know it could be contentious, I rely heavily on what I learned in that book on difficult conversations. I rely heavily on it. And quite often, I'll open up a conversation that I know is going to be hard. I'll open it up with, look, folks, look, this is going to be a very difficult conversation. So you and I both need to be open and honest and willing to listen, hear, and say what's on our heart. But if you get a chance, it's a wonderful book. It's great at handling those kind of conversations. What about trustworthy?
If they don't trust you, you can't, they're not going to listen to anything you say.
That's right. If they don't trust you, they're not going to open up to you about what really is going on in their life, that you may realize that they need more help than you can give. The compass is important, don't get me wrong, and the center of the compass, Christ, of course, is the most important part of what we do. But out of these four, trustworthy to me has always been the most important.
You know, I've noticed something since I've been a student leader.
Mm-hmm.
Since 13, Bob and I both have. Virtually every, one or two exceptions, every care receiver we've had trusted us.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that people do. The way we do it, the way we're taught to do it,
Mm-hmm.
It's something that builds trust.
It does. They'll tell you, listen to this because it'll happen to you. They will tell you something just to see if you tell someone else. They will do it. They will tell you something just to see if you tell someone else. That's not unusual.
That ends their,
I'm sorry, do what?
If you do, then that ends their.
It does.
You're not.
Exactly.
You can't rebuild that trust.
Exactly. No matter what it is, unless it involves abuse or self-abuse, if it's just something in their life, you've got to be trustworthy and keep it confidential.
And we tell them at the very beginning.
Yes.
That if there's something that life is threatened, any life is threatened, that we will go beyond the confidence.
Right. Yeah, the only time you can break confidentiality is when you think that someone's in danger of hurting themselves or hurting someone else. And then in that case, you come see me and I make the phone calls that need to be made then. And unfortunately, I've been in that situation too. I've had to call. I got shot at by a lady. She was in an altercation with the police. She was about half high. She demanded to see the pastor. They told me that she wanted to see me. I drive down there. I get stopped by the police because they've got the road blocked off. Tell them who I am. I get to go. They let me through. I go down there. I get out of the car and I called her by name and said, "This is Robert." And she said, "This is for you." And she shot.
Did it get near you?
No. Now, she was so drunk and high, she couldn't have hit the broadside of a barn. But we did talk her out of the house. we did talk her out of the house. She oddly enough, even after she shot at me, she trusted me enough that when I told her we would get her help, that I talked her out of the house. And we ended up putting her in a drug rehab program. Trustworthy is extremely important, even when you get shot at. It's extremely important.
More important.
Trustworthy also is showing up, being there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in relation to this class, is knowing when that's not enough. And
Right.
they can trust us to know when we need more help.
Oh, yeah. Very good point. They trust us to know when they need more help than we can give.
That's why we have to be careful not telling them things that's beyond what we.
That's right.
Because they might trust that we know what we're talking about. That's just an opinion.
In the center of the compass always is Christ. How does all this work around Christ? How does all of this encompass and envelop Christ? Not just today, but all that you've learned, because as Bob said, we're getting close to the wrap up, to the point where we wrap it all up. So how does what, not just today, but in general, how does what you've learned envelop Christ?
Messages were centered around taking care of
Christ, his message was centered around it. Hazel?
That's what I'm saying.
What else?
Everything.
Everything is centered around him. Go back to what I said about before you walk in. Make sure before you ever walk in the house, you're prayed up. Make sure you are prayed up. Because you don't want to walk into that house by yourself. You want to walk into that house with the Holy Spirit on your shoulder, helping you through whatever may be going on and whatever you may walk into inside that house. You may walk into a day when someone is having a bad day and they're half hysterical, and you still got to try and figure out a way to help them work through that.
And, you know, we're hoping that they will see Christ in us.
That's our hope and prayer, that they see Christ in this whole process.
You know, Pastor, there's a lot of physics that you think that nothing happens except you just have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the people love that.
Yeah. I've got a care receiver. Obviously can't tell you who, but I have a care receiver, and just talking is phenomenal. We have a great time together. We love to talk. Both of us love to talk.
That's the more normal situation.
I think that's what we get more than anything else.
I think so.
I've had two that I knew there was no solution.
Right.
We were not working toward a solution to their issue, but they just needed to talk. And sometimes it was the same thing every week.
Yep.
But it did help that somebody cared enough to listen.
To be there, to listen.
So that's most of what people will get assigned is people that just need somebody to listen.
I was not assigned to Elizabeth Bones, but I saw her on a weekly basis. I can tell you her name because she's passed now. I was not assigned to her, but I went to see her every week, and she would not eat. One of the biggest issues they had, other than her suffering from going into dementia, was she wouldn't eat. And the kids were scared to death for her to start up the stove or anything, forgetting that she'd forget to turn it off. So we discovered she loved Jack's. What's the hamburger at Jack's called? The family? Big Jack. She loved Big Jack's. She doesn't like to eat alone. Kinley loves Big Jack's. So I would go pick Kinley up at school, go to Jack's, get 2 Big Jack's, go to Elizabeth's house, and Elizabeth and Kinley would talk to one another while they ate Big Jack's. Ma'am? Always have to bring something. Yes, always had a treat for the dog. Yes, ma'am. Had to have something for the dog, too.
Did she know that you called that visit in your mind, a Stephen ministry visit?
It was.
No, did she know that?
Yes, yes.
She wouldn't accept.
Yes,
Really?
she did, because that was my first assignment. I can say that because.
Yeah, she's passed on now.
My very first assignment as a Stephen minister was Elizabeth.
When when I first started going to the house because the kids called me concerned about her not eating. And I went to the house and I just told her, I said, it was right after, I guess it was right after we'd gone through training. Must have been because I was trained at that point. And I told her, I said, as a Stevens minister and as your pastor, I'm just here to talk. Because she'd keep asking, what are you doing here? I'm just here to talk. There were days when I had to go find the dog because the dog got out. And you had to go find the dog.
Both of those things sound just like.
Yeah, she was interesting, but loved her to death.
Your seeing was probably a couple of years before the time I got assigned.
Probably,
I
yes.
think by then somebody else took my place because I had to do something else.
Mm,
And I think somebody else was already visiting her by then.
right.
Because I know I had that was long before you came, but I
Right.
see.
Mm-hmm. Let's look ahead. The Gospel of Luke, let's get our pages straight. The Gospel of Luke records the following incident. Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. When he saw them, he said, Go show yourselves to the priests. As they went, they were cleansed. Did Jesus send the men with leprosy to the priests because he was unable to attend to the needs by himself? Or was it because he didn't want to take time to minister to them? No, it was because Jesus knew that people with leprosy were considered unclean and cast out of the community. And the only way they could be declared clean and readmitted to society was by seeing a priest. Even Jesus referred people to other caregivers when it was the best course of action for them. As you put into practice all you have learned from this module, you'll follow Christ's model by making sure people receive the care that they need. Our next module, y'all ready for this? We'll cover the topic of ministering to those experiencing grief. Caring for people as they grieve is central to Stephen ministry because many of the challenges faced by care receivers include an element of loss and grief. For next time, closely study the pre-class reading for this module in Stephen Minister Training Manual. So read Module 12. Make sure that you read Module 12. I'm not sure what pages that, doesn't tell me what pages that are. Do what?
255.
255 to 268.
268.
Come to class ready to gain a deeper understanding of the nature of grief and how to care for grieving people. Receive this blessing as we close our time together. May our Lord Jesus, the head of his body, the church, bless us and grant us the wisdom, compassion, and humility to do everything we can to make sure our care receivers receive the best care possible. Amen.
That's all we got to do? That's all?
Yeah.